Good morning. It's 10 a.m. and we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Steve Ruxlow. I'll be your facilitator for today. And we're going to be talking about reducing restaurant slip, trip, and falls and the hazards and corrective actions that you can take. This program is for Society Insurance agents. Let's talk a little bit about Society Insurance and who Society Insurance is. We're basically a regional insurance carrier based out of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. We write business in 6 states, in Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Tennessee, and Minnesota. And we're expanding into Colorado this fall. We've been writing workers' compensation coverage since the beginning of our company in 1915. And we also offer coverages for property, liability, commercial auto, and extensive knowledge and experience in protecting the hospitality industry. Our specialty is providing insurance for select business niches with a focus on the small details that make the biggest difference. Just need to do a little disclaimer here as we go. This information is provided as a convenience, and it must not be assumed that it must not be assumed that it has detected all potential unsafe acts or conditions. This information is not professional advice. It's not designed to assist you in recognizing potential unsafe work problems and not to establish compliance with any laws, rules, or regulations. I just wanted to remind everybody, we're doing this all remotely today. So all of the presenters are in different locations and different connections. Hopefully we don't have any disruptions in that way. You could hear a dog bark in the background or a siren or other background noises, and we apologize for that, but please just bear with us as we do this remotely. If you have any questions during the presentation, just please send those in on the question function of the webinar software, and we'll review those and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. Again, my name's Steve Ruxlow. I'm one of the risk control managers with Society Insurance, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. I've been in the business for 25 years, and I've been with Society Insurance for 3 years. I'm going to turn it over to Blair.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Blair Arndt, and I'm a risk control rep here at Society, and I've been with Society a little over 15 years. I have a total of about 22 years in the risk control, loss control, insurance field, and about 3 years prior to that in industrial safety. Education includes a BS degree from University of Wisconsin at Whitewater, and I did some graduate work with the College of Insurance, which is part of St. John's University in New York. Frank?
Hello, I'm Frank Norton. I'll be one of your presenters today. I have a bachelor's degree from Wayne State University in wonderful Detroit, Michigan. I'm a senior risk control consultant, and my job is to work with society's policyholders to reduce hazards that could develop into claims. I have worked in risk control since 1981. I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Frank. My name is Mike Dilley. I'll be one of your presenters today. I'm a risk control rep with Society Insurance. I've been here for 7 years, although I've been in the industry for the last 34 years. I have a bachelor's degree in industrial safety management from the University of Central Missouri. I'm also a licensed agent and a licensed claims adjuster. Okay, the learning objectives. This webinar will provide information on how to identify hazards at your insured's businesses that could cause slip, trip, and fall injuries. We will also give some information on what corrective actions to take in order to prevent these, and look at visual examples for parking lots, walkways and sidewalks, curbs and ramps, snow and ice, patios and decks, and stairway and steps, flooring and carpeting, floor mats, indoor stairway and steps, and floor care and spill cleanup. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start out with a few poll questions. These will help to give us an idea of where people are on the topic and also what needs to be covered. So, what percentage of society insurance claims are related to slip and falls? And this includes both general liability and workers' compensation claims.
All right, I see some answers coming in. We'll just give it a couple seconds here for everybody to respond. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
Okay. The answer is 44% of society insurance claims are related to slip and falls. So as you can see, these types of losses are nearly half of our total claims situation. Okay, here is the second part to the previous question. What do you think is the average cost of society insurance slip and fall claims? Again, this takes into account both general liability and workers' compensation claims.
All right, I see answers coming in. We'll just give it a few seconds for everybody to respond. All right, we've got a good majority here. I'm going to close the poll.
Okay. The answer is $7,400 is the average cost of society insurance slip and fall claims. Now that's more than many of our customers' total yearly premium just for one claim. So hopefully you can see the importance of reducing these exposures. Let's start with potholes in parking lots. Severe weather in the winter and spring seasons that aggravate, even slightly damage parking lot surfaces. It causes existing cracks in the asphalt to increase in size and depth, and potholes form and continue to increase in size. So the risk of slip and trip injuries in these environments is very high. Now, potholes should be repaired as soon as possible to prevent trip and falls. Also consider periodic seal coating of asphalt lots to seal cracks and prevent further water intrusion. Water intrusion is a concern because in the winter it will freeze, which will increase the size of the crack and eventually will create a new pothole. Here are a few examples. The pothole on the left is obviously a trip and fall hazard. Customers don't see potholes when it's dark. Customers or employees who step into potholes often trip and fall. These types trip and fall. Now, these types of footwears are a concern example. For example, guest high-heeled shoes, those heels can catch on the edge of a pothole, causing a trip and fall. The picture on the right is a picture that I like. It is a policyholder who is proactive in warning their customers of a pothole hazard. The parking lot pothole marker is inserted into the pothole and will not be removed until the pothole is repaired. The marker can be seen during the day and at night, and you can see that there is a circular reflector installed on the top of the orange marker, as well as 2 layers on the reflective tape at the top of the pothole marker. Customers' vehicles' headlights reflect off these areas at night, and the orange post is visible during the day. Now let's talk about pavement around manhole covers. The picture on the left is a picture of a manhole cover that is below the parking lot pavement surface. This is a trip and fall hazard because it needs to be raised to level with the surface and the asphalt around it, repaired by a contractor. In the picture on the right is an example of how the asphalt pavement around the drain cover is damaged and needs repair. There's also a pothole next to the cover that needs to be repaired. So as you can see, the pothole is pretty deep and could damage a customer's car tire as well as it is a severe trip and fall hazard. What about wheel stops? Are wheel stops hazardous? Of course, we know that the answer is yes, and that they are a tripping hazard when present. A few precautions should be taken to limit a hazard of tripping. Wheel stops should be no wider than the width of a vehicle. They should be marked with a contrasting color or contrast to the parking lot surface. For example, concrete wheel stops on a black asphalt parking lot. It's extremely important to pay special attention to their maintenance because they deteriorate faster than other areas of the parking lot. Let's look at some examples of this. In the first picture, winter, snow plows, and salt have been unkind, to say the least, to this wheel stop. It's become a trip and fall hazard and as well as a vehicle damage hazard. While in this condition, the wheel stop needs to be replaced because it is way beyond repair. In the second picture, the policyholder has painted their concrete wheel stops yellow to improve their color contrast against the asphalt pavement and concrete sidewalk. This will help reduce trips and falls and hazards in this environment. Okay, let's talk a little bit about downspouts. Obviously, downspouts draining into your sidewalks and parking lot are a slip and fall hazard because rainwater on an asphalt parking lot makes it more slippery. Then it gets cold and the rainwater on the sidewalks and the parking lot freezes and turns into ice. So downspouts should be routed to discharge water away from the building into areas with no walk-through traffic, which will reduce the hazard of a customer or employee slip and falling and causing serious injury. In addition, the rerouting of water can also reduce the possibility of structural and water damage to the building foundation and walls. Okay, the first picture here shows a downspout that drains water directly onto the walkway. The second picture shows a downspout that drained water into the walkway and then temperatures fell. You can see the water froze, creating a slip and fall on ice hazard. So in this, the third picture shows a downspout that drains into the parking lot. When the temperature drops, water freezes on the parking lot, creating a slip and fall situation. Now, these downspouts should be routed to discharge water away from the building onto an area with no walk-through traffic. Here are a few examples of two downspouts that are correctly installed to drain rainwater into the storm water system rather than drain water onto the walkway and parking lot. Now let's just talk a second about speed bumps here. Yes, of course, speed bumps are a fall hazard. They are also a vehicle damage and trip, slip, and fall hazard. Speed bumps are usually not necessary in a well-designed parking lot, but if speed bumps are absolutely necessary, locate them away from pedestrian traffic, such as at entrance and exit areas. Install a speed bump sign and post the recommended speed wherever speed bumps have to be used. Keep in mind that speed bumps should be designed to the provisions of the American National Standards Institute or the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Speed bumps should utilize a slip-resistant material or paint with non-slip aggregate that contrasts with its surroundings. This picture shows a well-designed speed bump. It's low to the ground, narrow, and not too much longer than the width of the vehicle. It has yellow and black warning striping on it and is made with a slip-resistant material. Okay, This concludes my portion of the presentation. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Blair.
Thank you, Mike. Well, let's move on to walkways and sidewalks. So to reduce the slip and falls and the trip and falls, you'll need to determine who will be responsible for the walkways and sidewalks surrounding your business. Schedule regular inspections of the sidewalks and walkways and increase the frequency of these inspections during the winter months to monitor for refreezing. Your walkways should be in good condition and free of cracks and potholes. Your walkway should be at the same elevation as the top of the curb to prevent tripping at the top of the edge of the curb. Differences in elevation greater than a quarter inch create a trip hazard because they are unexpected. Use a measuring stick, or 4 pennies stacked on top of each other will equal a quarter inch. If these variances are found, repairs should be made, and all repairs should be performed by qualified contractors. Now, on the picture on the left, your inspection has found that there is a section of the sidewalk that is sunken, creating a trip fall hazard at the edge of the second sidewalk section. Now, in the center picture, your inspection has found broken brick pavers in the walkway that are trip and fall hazard, especially for guests wearing high heels. And lastly, on the picture on your right, your inspection has discovered that the sidewalk and curb are damaged. The sidewalk is uneven, creating a trip and fall hazard. In addition, there is a difference in the elevation between the curb and the sidewalk, creating a trip and fall hazard where the sidewalk meets the curb. Now, when are curbs a hazard? Here are some examples. When the curbs are less than 6 inches in height, they create an unforeseen trip hazard. Most customers don't expect curbs to be higher, so it's easy to miss these and then trip and fall the curb. Curbs with cracking, settlement, damage problems, snowplow damage, or spalling and other deteriorating conditions also create a trip and fall hazard. Curbs that have settled and resulted in obvious low spots are trip and fall hazards. So these curbs have to be raised. Curbs that do not contrast with the surrounding surfaces are difficult to see and can cause trip and falls. Let's look at some examples. So sunken and broken paving bricks at the curb are a trip and fall hazard. The picture on the left shows these brick pavers that have sunken below the curb. This is a trip hazard. Center picture shows the edge of the walkway curb has broken concrete and also is a trip hazard. And the picture on the right has 2 trip hazards. The brick pavers have sunken below the curb, and additionally, the curb is damaged and has an exposed steel concrete reinforcing bar. Of course, a trip and fall hazard. Now, the contrast between the curb and parking lot, the curb in the picture on the left has no contrast between the curb and the concrete parking lot, which makes it difficult for customers to see, especially at night. Now, on the right, this is a good example of yellow warning paint used to contrast the curb from the concrete parking lot. Now let's move on to ramps. So the slope of a ramp increases with the potential of a slip and fall incidents compared with a level surface, of course. Curb ramps can increase the potential for fall-related incidents when people approach the ramps from side to side or perpendicular to the ramp's path. Customers can trip on the ramps when they step on them from the side instead of stepping on them from the bottom or the top of the ramp. The sides of the ramp the sides of the curb ramp often slopes down onto the ramp depression, and people tend to lose their balance if they do not see the ramp. Customers walking along the sidewalk who do not notice the ramp may lose their balance when they step onto it and fall. To warn customers of the ramp, outline the sides of the curb ramp with contrasting yellow paint to highlight the ramp and to warn of the elevation change. Now, here are some examples of the ramp highlights. On the left, you see yellow and blue warning paint is used to contrast the handicap ramp from the parking lot and the walkway. Now, in the middle picture, in the center picture, you have blue and yellow warning paint, and red concrete is used to contrast the handicap ramp from the parking lot and walkway. And then on the right picture, you have red concrete is used to contrast the handicap ramp from the parking lot and the walkway. Now, the American Society for Testing and Materials, they state that painted walkways shall contain an abrasive additive, that or a cut cross grooving, texturing, or other appropriate means to render the surface slip resistant when wet conditions may be reasonably foreseeable. And as far as marking, the ANSI, which is American Standard, National Standards of Institute, as far as marking, they state that if curbs adjacent to the ramp flares are painted, the painted surfaces shall extend along the flared portion of the curb. Now, warning paint must have a slip-resistant irrigant. Standard paint becomes slippery when wet and increases the hazard of slip and falls. So warning paint must have a slip-resistant irrigant. Yellow warning paint that has a slip-resistant aggregate should be used to curb warning striping and handicap ramp warning stripings. Due to the constant climate changing, as far as the sun, the rain, the snow, and then foot traffic, most outdoor painting will begin to fade within a year or two. Plan on repainting every 2 years or when the remaining coating has been visibly reduced or becomes faded. Now let's move on to snow and ice removal. The controls for snow and ice should be in writing. Snow contractor service agreements should include details like means, the materials, methods, and even a diagram of the service areas. Painted surfaces should include proper application of abrasives. Downspouts should be direct drainage away from the walkways or underground or even through drains to prevent water from freezing. So what equipment and materials are recommended to reduce the hazard associated with snow and ice? The preferred methods for snow removal are snow plows for parking lots, snow blowers for walkways, simply because they can remove snow quickly. Staff should use snow shovels to remove snow in areas that large equipment cannot get at, and to spot clean entrances as needed during the day or night. Use sand or other abrasives to create traction when de-icing materials or salt are not practical. Now, the location of snow piles in the picture increases the risk of ice near the door when the piles thaw and refreeze. Also notice that damaged gutter above the door On the left, this allows melting snow from the roof to drain onto the pavement right in front of the door entrance, which can then freeze and turn into ice. When ice and snow buildup is identified, it should be addressed. Keep extra sand and salt at entrances and increase the frequency of outdoor inspections when you have icy and snowy conditions. Now, this next slide pertains to parking lot winter slip and fall hazards. In the first picture, we can see a water puddle in the parking lot, which then can freeze at night, creating a slip and fall hazard. Ice is very difficult to see at night on black asphalt pavement. Now, the picture on the right, you see snow and ice buildup in the parking lot stalls between the two SUVs. When the snowplow had cleared the parking lot earlier, there was cars parked in the area and the snowplow could not remove the snow. But now the snow has turned into ice. This area should be manually salted by the staff. Now let's go on to patios, decks, and stairs. Now consider these controls. Build patios and decks, stairs, and steps with slip-resistant materials or apply slip-resistant coatings to them. If the surfaces are painted, utilize a surface paint or material that is waterproof and textured for better traction. Also, clean these areas regularly. Install railings on the steps, which are 3 or more risers. Risers, of course, are steps. Install guardrails around the outer perimeter of any deck that is greater than 9 inches above the ground. Steps and stairs should be free and clear of things like advertising, merchandise, artwork, and plants. These items can be distracting to customers walking up and down the stairs and can hide hazards. Install adequate lighting so that the customers can see steps and obstacles to prevent a trip and fall incident. Let's look at some examples. Now, this is a good example. As you can see, the raised patio deck. It has guardrails to help prevent falls off the patio, and the stairway has handrails to prevent trip and falls or slip and falls. Very good example. The next example, there's actually 3 good pictures here of entrances with 2 handrails, and this provides adequate coverage to prevent trip and falls and slip and falls. Very good examples. Now, Frank, why don't you take it away?
All righty, thank you, Blair. I'm going to discuss right now flooring and carpeting. Damaged flooring and carpeting is a trip and fall hazard. The main hazards are individuals wearing high-heeled shoes. That high heel, it can easily get caught on damaged carpeting or damaged floor tile. Also, and we're all going to be in walkers someday, God willing, but standard walkers, the 2-wheel rolling walkers and 4-wheel rolling walkers that our seniors use, the type that my parents use, okay, they're a hazard. They get caught on damaged carpeting and also caught on damaged flooring, broken floor tiles. It's extremely important that your insureds repair damaged flooring or carpeting as soon as possible to reduce trips and falls. This slide shows an example of a damaged floor tile. If an individual is walking across the floor and maybe a high heel hits that, well, then that can cause a accident. We're now discuss floor mats. All right. You need to use a floor mat with a slip-resistant backing on wet surfaces to reduce what is called surfboarding. Now, it's extremely important that the floor mat your insured purchases and uses or is supplied by a vendor who they're renting the floor mats and cleaning is NFSI, or National Floor Safety Institute, or ANSI, American National Standard Institute certified. You do not want them to get their mats from Home Depot. You do not want to have them purchase their mats that aren't certified. You don't want them to use residential mats. Now, we're now going to discuss finding the right spot for mats. We're going to discuss 4 zones. We'll discuss the entrance zones, the high-risk zones, high traffic zones, and productivity zones. Real quick, high entrance zones, we're talking about any area of the building where somebody walks into, but particularly the customers or employees. High risk zones, they're the area from the bathroom to the hallway. They include around ice machines. Think ice, when it spills on the ground, it melts, you've got water. Prep sinks, dish sinks. High traffic zones, they're hallways that the customers are walking back and forth, and also employees. They're the checkout station. They're the lead out from the kitchen. The lead out from the kitchen is you open the kitchen door and you're walking out into the dining area. Productivity zones, they include workstations, customer service areas. We're now going to go to the next slide. All right. These are pictures, 2 pictures of floor mats in high-risk areas. You can see the entrance, customer entrance, on the first picture on the left. And then we have a long hallway in the picture of the right with several floor mats. Now, we're going to discuss a little bit about floor mats. The longer the floor mat, the more dirt and water it collects. A 6-foot-long floor mat collects 40% of the water and dirt on the customer's or employee's shoe. A 12-foot floor mat collects 80% of the water and dirt. Now we're going to talk about a 36-foot floor mat. That collects 99% of water and dirt. Now you want to make sure, okay, that the floor mat does not get caught when you open the door. On the first picture, when a customer opens that door, you want to make sure that that door clears the floor mat. That's extremely important. Otherwise, it creates a trip hazard. Now we're going to discuss mats in high-risk areas. You can see the insured has put a floor mat at the customer checkout. We also can see in the second picture, we've got floor mats along the cooking line, and these are rubberized floor mats. Now, the rubber kitchen floor mats help with drainage and reduce foot fatigue and increase traction, but they must be kept clean. Otherwise, they'll be as slippery as the floor that they're over. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. Mat hazards. Now, we want a floor mat. We want our insureds to use them to prevent slips and falls. And then we want to make sure they don't increase the hazard of trip and falls. When the backside of the mat becomes worn, like in the first picture, the mat will slide across the floor. It needs to be replaced. The second picture on the right, this is a mat that is wrinkled. You see wrinkling along the edges, and there's also wrinkles along in the mat. This mat has to be replaced. If your insured has a vendor service that is supplying floor mats, and they drop off a mat that's wrinkled, the insured should have them returned. That mat should be returned, and there should be a clear understanding that your insured is not going to accept a mat that's wrinkled or is damaged. Now, we're going to discuss indoor stairways and steps. All right. A lot of claims occur at society on indoor stairways and steps. You must have sufficient lighting so the customer or employee can see the stairway or step. You want contrasting handrails at the appropriate height. We want the steps to be slip resistant. We want the edges or nosings, okay? When I'm talking about the edging or nosing, I've got my hand, I've got one horizontal, my hand's horizontal, I got another hand vertical. Where the fingernails touch, that is the edge of the nosing. And the stairways and steps need to be free of obstacles that could cause trips or hazards. Go to the next slide. All right. We've got the two sets of stairways. The one picture on the left, this is nice. We've got two handrails. If you also look at the steps, there's like slip-resistant material near the nosing or edging of the step. Excellently designed stairway. The stairway on the right, it has one handrail, but there's items on the step which create a trip and fall hazard. We're going to talk about short stairs or single steps. They're potentially dangerous and may not be noticed. They must be equipped with obvious visual clues. We're talking about something that when an employee or a customer walks up, it's obvious to them that they're coming towards a short stair or single step. These obvious visual clues include handrails, nosing edges, that's the edge of the stair, tactile clues, warning signs, contrasting surface colors, or accent lighting. A handrail on each side of the step is preferred. Short stairways. The picture on the left is what I want to see. There are two handrails. This is a two-step stairway. You can see that the nosing or the edges are visible. There's also non-slip material on the top of the step. This non-slip material, which is adhesive which has been put down, has been rated. Okay, I believe this adhesive was National Floor Safety Institute, NFSI, certified. It's very important to get the proper certification for that material. Also, when it starts to be worn, it needs to be replaced. On the picture on the right, we have a two-step stairway leading to the bar, from the dining room to the bar. It needs a center handrail. How do we know that? Well, I am 5'10", and when I put my arm out, I'm literally, as we're doing this, I got my left arm out. I got a tape measure on my shoulder. From my finger to my shoulder is 30 inches. I'm supposed to be able to grab a handrail within 30 inches. Now, in the picture on the left, you can. On the picture of the right, you can't. Even though there's a handrail on the far wall, it's too far away. All right. Now we're going to address floor care and spill cleanup. The staff must clean the floors daily, and the floors need to be cleaned during non-peak business hours. When you clean a floor, it gets wet. You don't want customers or your employees, running back and forth during peak hours on a wet floor. Your insureds must train their employees on the proper procedures and to use the proper cleaning chemicals. We want separate mops for different areas to reduce potential for cross-contamination. Well, what I'm talking about is I want a mop for the kitchen, I want a mop for the front of the house, and I want a mop for the bathroom. So I want 3 mops. And I recommend that each mop have a different color so the employees don't mix the mops up. We don't want the employee to use a kitchen mop in the front of the house or the bathroom and spread grease around in there. And we don't want the employee to use a bathroom mop and spread contaminants or germs in the kitchen. Now, this is an extremely important slide. What we're looking at is we're looking at dispensing systems. These are used so that the chemical is pre-mixed. What we don't want is a rich mixture of the chemical on the floor. If your insured employees are free pouring the cleaning chemical into the mop bucket, most likely they're putting in too much, which creates a rich mixture which leaves a soap film on the floor. Now, you want to get a ring off your finger, you put soap on it, you put water to get the ring off. Needless to say, when you get water on a floor with a soap film, you have a severe slip and fall hazard. The picture on the right, this is also a good picture. It shows the different types of cleaning chemicals. So one, blue may be for the front of the house, green may be for the back of the house, maybe purple for the bathrooms. That's what we're looking for. Now, this type of equipment, I'm going to talk real quick before we're going to go to poll question, but those dispensers have to be calibrated for the proper cleaning chemical. If your insured changes their cleaning chemical, they got to change the dispenser. Now, we're going to do a poll question right now. Should enzyme-based floor cleaners be used in the kitchen?
All right, I see some responses coming in. A couple more. Okay, we've got a good majority here. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
All right, this is what I expect. Let's talk about the hazards of enzyme-based cleaning chemicals. An enzyme-based cleaning chemical has enzymes, which are living organisms. You mix them with cold water, and you put them on the floor. And when they dry, these enzymes eat the grease in the floor. So it sounds like a wonderful product. Now, enzymes are living organisms. What do you have to do in a kitchen, commercial kitchen, where they're recommended to be used? You have to sanitize. How do employees sanitize? They use spray sanitizers. So you put this living organism on your floor, and your insured's floor, then their staff spray the surrounding equipment, and the overspray falls on the floor and kills the enzymes. When they keep mopping the floor, they're constantly mixing those disinfectant chemicals, and they're killing the enzymes that you're putting down. So what winds up happening is your insured staff is putting cold water on a floor. It's not being cleaned. The enzymes are dead or dying. And that's why if you walk on a kitchen floor where the insured is using these types of products, it is extremely slippery. So we do not recommend them. All right, next poll question. Do your customers use deck brushes when cleaning their floor?
Okay, the poll's open. See some responses coming in. A few more trickling in. Looks like we got a majority here answered. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
All right. Yes, 33%. That's the number that we want to hear. And we're going to talk a little bit more in the next slide about deck brushes. All right. Deck brushes are needed for deep cleaning. You got a kitchen floor, you've got a lot of grease, you've got grout between the tiles. A deck brush is needed to clean the floor. Deck brushes can also be color-coded for designated areas. You're going to have a different color deck brush. This is what I recommend: a different color deck brush for the front of the house, and then a different color deck brush for the back of the house, so you don't mix them up. Mops and mop buckets. Again, extremely important that we don't use the kitchen mop in the front of the house, because where the customers are going to be walking, we're going to be spreading grease. And again, we don't want the bathroom mop in the kitchen. So how you do this is, again, have mops with separate colors, separate mop head colors. We've got it looks like a red one hanging on the picture on the left, and maybe it's a blue one. We also recommend separate mop buckets. So you have a mop bucket with a different color as well, so you don't mix them up. We're going to talk a little bit about spill cleanup. That's extremely important. The staff has to be properly trained how to clean up a spill. We want to make sure that they're not walking by them, that they understand when they see a spill, it's their job to clean it up. We want them to use wet floor warning signs when the floor is wet to warn the customer that they're walking on a wet floor. It is extremely important to remove the sign after the floor dries. We don't want that sign up on a dry floor because the customer can trip over it. Also, if you keep leaving those signs up, customers get conditioned to see them all the time, and they're not thinking if the floor is wet or dry because it's there all the time. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. Summary. Slip, trips, and falls are very common and very costly. To reduce slip, trips, and falls, the first step is to think about the information that you've learned in this presentation and how you can enter into a discussion with your insured to reduce this hazard. Then use and discuss corrective actions, or have your insured use corrective actions, or what we're looking for is you discuss correction actions with the insured in this presentation to help eliminate the hazards of slip, trips, and falls. I'm going to now discuss the resources. Society Insurance. I would like you to go to the Society Insurance webpage, click on the Risk Control tab, and you're going to see the resources that we offer. We have handouts, free streaming safety videos, which can be used with the insured on any type of device, and also tips. I'm going to now turn the presentation over to Stig.
All right. Thank you, Frank. This would be the time that we'd answer any questions that have come in. If you have any, feel free to type them into the questions function of the webinar software. I see a couple coming in. Frank, I think you could tackle this one. What's the leading cause for falling fatalities?
Okay, the leading cause of falling fatalities, according to the U.S. Product Safety Commission, are steps and stairs. Wow, they're the leading cause of falling deaths.
Okay. Here's another one. When would you want to post a yellow warning sign that says "Caution, step down"? Blair, would you want to tackle that one?
Sure. Anywhere that you have a stairway, either that has more than a couple steps, and is not, you want that to be also color coded too. And then when the step drops suddenly, well, the steps blend together, making it harder for the next step. You definitely want a sign up there.
Great, thank you. A couple more still coming in. when would a customer be required to put up a wet floor sign? Mike, do you want to tackle that one?
Sure, I can do that. Short and sweet. It's when a spill can't be cleaned up right away. So
yeah, that is
it's going to be there for a
simple.
little bit. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just put wet floor signs out anytime you just can't get the spill cleaned up right away.
Thank you. I just see one last one here. Are people, older people, maybe over the age of 65 or something like that, it says here, more likely to become victims of slip, trips, and falls? Frank, do you want to tackle that?
Yes, the answer is yes to that question. Per the Centers of Disease and Control and Prevention, the CDC, seniors hold a 33% of falling in any given year. Older citizens are 5 times more likely to be treated for fall injuries than any other injury.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. So I want to thank everybody for attending today. This has been recorded, and the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. And you can always feel free to email questions in as well. So thank you for attending today. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the webinar.